Hello, today we're going to be talking about your InfoBlast observational rendering. I'm going to be talking more specifically about the pencils we're going to be using. Most of this top part information is going to be from your PowerPoint, which you should be looking at and getting to this section in a video link within. So today and right now, we're going to be talking about the pencil values and gradation scale of value scale. If your pencil kit is in front of you, you may notice there's some various pencils in there. You might even have one of my favorites, a Ticonderoga pencil in there. And you'll notice at the heel end, not the sharpened end, the heel end, there is a number and a letter. So maybe grab one of those pencils, take a look for a number and a letter. And two that I would really like for you to try checking out right now are going to be one, look for one marked 4B. So this is a different type of a drawing pencil. It looks a little bit different, but notice it still has the 4B mark. And look maybe for a 2H in your kit. Either one, I'd like for you to just make some marks. So I'm actually gonna do this on the other side. You could do this out on the edge of your paper. Just wanna make sure it's big enough so everybody can see. So currently I have in my hand the 2H. I'm just gonna make some lines. I'm gonna push hard, I'm gonna push lightly with the pencil. And I want you to kind of think about different properties that you notice with that 2H pencil. And then maybe try the 4B. Try the same kind of pressure, the same kind of lines maybe. So what are we noticing about these two different pencils? One's a little bit lighter in value. If you look at the edges of the line, some of you with the 4B, you may have a little bit of like a spray or kind of some dusty marks over there. So some properties I'd like you to think about are the darkest of the two pencils was your 4B, right? So on this side of your value scale where it says black and dark, I'd love for you to write the letter B. And on the white and light side of your scale, I'd like for you to think about H's. So you could even use a middle of the road pencil, an HB pencil, to even put those marks on there so you can see them. So if I have an H on the left, H, white, light, it's a lightweight pencil. It's going to give me a lighter line. You may also notice it's a harder lead. So as I write with it, it's going to stay more sharp. I'm not going to lose the point on the pencil. On my B side, it's a darker value. So it's a soft pencil, soft lead, and that black or that darker value. So I'm going to seek out darks with that B pencil. So as I'm starting to do some modeling and shading, I'm going to be looking to use my lighter weight pencils for my light values and my darker pencils for my darker values. But which pencil do you use? You may even see in that pencil kit a 6B, got the 4B, you might have a 2H, an HB, you might have a 2B pencil. If you're lucky, you might have a 4H in there. There's all these different pencils. What are we going to do with them? If you think of this scale right here as an integer scale, remember integers from maybe middle school or late grade school math, right? On an integer scale, I'd have like -1, -2, -3, -4, and so on. And over here, I'd have my +1, my +2, +3, +4. So remember, with integers, you're going to get a bigger number as you get farther away from the 0. So if I was going to place my pencils on this value scale, my current pencils that I have, my lightest pencil is the 4H. So like my 4H in terms of value, hardness, it's going to be all the way closer to that left side, the H side, the lightweight, harder lead side, right? My next pencil is going to be about that 2H. Then my middle of the road is my HB. The pencils that we used to take standardized testing when I was your age were 2B pencils. Now they've gone to an HB lead because the lead will stay sharper longer. That makes the pencil more functional. So now standardized testing is done with HB pencils, but you'll see a number 2 often because we still refer to these as our number 2 pencils for testing. After that, I'd probably get into a 2B, a 4B, and then if I've got one, a 6B. I even at home have an 8B pencil. I think I've used this maybe 5 times. Okay, so for our purposes and for most art purposes, I can pull a lot of these pencils away. I'm going to do our samples with just the 4B because sometimes we don't have enough 6Bs laying around. So I'm going to use that 4B, and I'm even going to pull that 2B out. I'm going to do our value scale with just these 3 pencils, okay? As I look at this range here, I'm kind of thinking about going to the paint section of the hardware store where I see a sample of some color that I want to paint my wall. Maybe I see a light version of that, a middle valued version of that, and then something really dark, but it's all kind of the same color. It's a monochromatic scale. That's kind of what I'm doing here with this value scale. So down at this end, this is where I'm gonna see a big dark value. Now, as I kind of fill this in, notice where I'm holding the pencil. Am I holding it like I'm writing with the pencil? So think about when I want a lot of control over my pencil, do I hold it way back at the heel end? No, I'm gonna hold that right up the tippy top. I'm gonna use like what's called a tripod grip. I'm gonna hold that so that the point makes contact with the paper. If I do that as I'm using a pencil, I'm gonna get a lot of streaky lines in it. If I go back to the heel end of the pencil and I hold that pencil as flat as I can, maybe I should go with a sharper one so you can actually see what I'm doing. I'll use this HB and start to put a little bit of value in here. As I hold that heel end, I can put a light pressure on the pencil. I can put a heavier pressure on the pencil, but notice I'm not getting as much streaky stroke mark with that pencil. So something I want you to try to do is to avoid leaving stroke marks or stroke lines in your work today. Okay, so this value scale, we're gonna end up going from white. So this box, I'm not gonna put any pencil in it. Here, I'm gonna use that 2H and I'm gonna try to get as light as I possibly can, and I'll show you a trick in a little bit on how we can do that. Okay, uh-oh, I got a little something underneath my paper there. See my little dot right there? I've got something under here that I'm picking up. So I want to try to use a flat surface when I do this. Okay. As I keep kind of filling this out, I suggest to lots of kids you may want to start on your dark end, then start bringing your light end along. The one thing I don't want to see you do is put some values in. Maybe somebody's already done this by now. Putting in some values and then taking your fingers and rubbing across this whole scale. I want to see a definite drop from one value to the next in each of these rectangles. Where did I put that 4B pencil? There he is. So I'm going to take this even darker by putting more pressure on there. If I am starting to see a little bit of stroke mark, or I'm having a hard time hitting the edge of my rectangle, something I might do is go in the opposite direction, as I want to kind of get into that area's edge to define that spot, or in this case, a flat rectangle. So I'm going to take this a little bit darker. Well, a lot darker than it was. And I'm going to call that like my value 9. Okay. I might still use that 4H pencil, or 4B pencil, sorry, and start to work my value 8 with it. But keep in mind, I want to see a significant difference or variation. Right now, that's a big jump. So I'm going to tighten this up just a little bit, almost doing like a second layer, or if you think in terms of paint with this, a second coat to make it just a little bit more even and dark. I hope the camera is picking this up pretty well. And then as I keep going, I may do a little bit of this 6B, but I could use a 2B, or I'm sorry, I'm using the 4B. I could switch into a 4B, I could switch into a 2B at this point. So I may start to mix some of my pencils. So what I mean by that is this is currently the 4B. Then I might take the HB and go on top of that a little bit. Okay. And then as I keep going, I want to get lighter, a little bit lighter, and a little bit lighter, and a little bit lighter. But right now, my midsection is going to get kind of stagnant. So I'm going to come over to here, and I'm going to start working on my lights down to my midtones. So right now, I have a pretty clear change from white to my second value. So as I come in and I try to add that third value, I'm going to kind of make it similar to what I currently have for my value number 2. So this is my 2. This is going to be my 3. So I want to kind of get an even, get a little sharp edge on my pencil there. I want to try to keep it nice and even so that I get a flat sort of look to the value. I don't want to see crisscross marks. Right now I've got some crisscrossing. I don't know if you can see that on the camera or not, but I definitely can, which maybe now I come through on a diagonal. To kind of clean that up just a little bit more. Now remember, this is a harder lead, right? So as I'm working the pencil, I may see stroke marks, even though I'm holding it very, very flat, I might still see some of those stroke marks. Now, hopefully in your kit somewhere, you've got one of these. This is a kneaded eraser, so it's not something that we're gonna gum up and and make sculptures with, like clay, it's an eraser that's meant to be shaped in order to pull off graphite or charcoal, pastels, any kind of medias that you're working with. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna go back to this level 2 and I'm gonna lighten it just a little bit. I don't necessarily wanna lighten it with a regular eraser, like a rubber eraser or like this kind of pink eraser back here. That's gonna take too much of the media off. I wanna just take a little bit of the media off. So I'm gonna kind of stretch it and bend it. And if it looks kind of dirty, that's okay. As you stretch it and bend it, it's gonna kind of clean itself up. And then what I'm gonna do is just kind of tap into that box 2. And I'm gonna take some of that pencil off. I don't know if you can tell that I've lightened it up. I can tell that I've lightened it up. And now I've got even a bigger jump from 2 to 3 than I have from 1 to 2 right now. Okay, so maybe I even, if I can get it that light, maybe I'll even come into 2 and not tap quite as hard, but just kind of softly take a little bit of that off. This will also kind of help with some of those little bits of stroke mark that are still there. It'll kind of help get those to sort of blend out a little bit. I don't want to see your fingers smudging through. Finger smudging takes the oil from your fingers and it smears it into the paper. And then if I try to do something with a kneaded eraser, or even if I try to use this kind of an eraser, often it just becomes kind of a blobby mess in the end. So I'm gonna get a cleaner sense of value range if I kind of use my pencil. Remember, I'm holding the heel end of the pencil. I'm gonna use that pencil a lot more than I use my fingers. Okay. And I know some of you are probably already up asking for a Kleenex or a tissue at this point. Yeah, that's okay, but you're also gonna get that smeary effect with a tissue too. So the big thing that we are working towards in your Intro to 2D class, and we will continue if you take Drawing 1, is to not use your hands and your fingers and Kleenex and stumps and all those tortillions and some of those things that a few of your teachers have shown you in the past, but we are going to try to get you to learn how to control this pencil. Drawing action starts to become something more from the whole arm and the body than it is from the wrist and the fingers. As we get into life drawing, which we will be in a little bit here, we want to start to connect our eyes to our hands and our arms. And that has to go through our head, down our neck, through our shoulder, down through the elbow, into that forearm, and then the wrist. Okay, so I'm not too concerned about this right now. What I am looking for is, do I see a decent descent? I think I want just a smidge more. On my camera, this looks like it's a big jump, but I'm not seeing that so much in my view here. So I'm looking for a slow gradation. So now I'm going to start coming back into this mid zone. Okay. All right. I'm going to kind of finish this up quickly. If I can, I'll try to speed it up in the video when I do the edits. If not, I will trust that you are still working on yours while I am still working on mine, and maybe we'll get done about the same time with this. And you can kind of compare what I've got and what you've got. Oh, I'm picking up a lot of, I must have a sharp edge in this pencil. So something that you may notice, I'm starting to build into where the wood is meeting the edge of the pencil. If you start to see that happening, you may have a sharp edge there. So you might find, I don't know, maybe you can see it if I turn it sideways, it's starting to pop to the point. And that's what's giving me some of these little tracer sort of dark little zones in here. So you may find you want to sharpen that pencil. There should be some pencil sharpeners around, or a classroom pencil sharpener that you could use to get that graphite back to the very edge of your pencil. So I think I'm gonna put him away because he's leaving little lines for me. And I'm actually gonna grab this 2B that I said I wasn't gonna use at the beginning of my video. And I'm gonna kind of come in here, and then I'm gonna use an eraser to kind of smooth that out a little bit. So I'm gonna take a little bit of that off. Now, I don't know if you noticed that I took the 2H and the HB and I kind of layered them on top of each other to start to build these values in here. It is definitely okay to layer your pencil use. You may find you need a little bit of a harder edge and you're not able to get that with a B pencil. The pencil's too soft. So you may find that you want to use a little bit of an H, like HB or an H pencil to kind of build an edge somewhere. Okay. So when I kind of fixed this guy, now do you see my difference here? So I'm looking for a value in between these two values to finish this one off, right? Or I need to take the whole thing darker. So let's see where I get when I put a little tiny bit of 2B on top of this. And I've still got some ability to get a little bit darker on this end. I'm not as black as I know I could get. So we're looking for a nice contrast between white and black, or light and dark, and a full range of gray in between. So I'm gonna use this 2B over here. Now I've kind of started to cover up those sort of scratches that I had when I had that wood sharp edge in place. Sorry, I'm left-handed, so I keep cocking the paper over to make this easier for me. Okay. As I get in here, I could switch back into the 4B and start to use a little bit of a heavier pressure. So notice I am choking up on the pencil a little bit more. So choking up, it means I'm starting to bring more angle to the pencil. I'm not at the very heel end back here. I'm starting to grip closer towards the point. Okay. I also recommend trying to work on the cleanest, flattest surface as possible when you're doing any kind of drawing. You may notice if you're sitting at a table or a desk that's got some kind of something stuck to the table surface, you may be picking up the texture of whatever that is. That's because of the way we're shading these. You're literally creating a textured rubbing of whatever's underneath your paper. And I am really soft right here. So let me find something a little more flat here. Oh, that's not gonna work. Well, we won't worry about it. I can get there. But if you have a harder table surface or a flat drawing board, you won't have so much buckling to your paper. Can you see how I'm getting some like a shiny buckle in here as I go? Almost a dent in my paper. If you're doing this in your workbook, you may find you want to open the workbook up, push the other pages around, kind of like you might do with a spiral notebook, so that just this page is on the surface of the table. Now, can you see my range when I go like this? I'm getting some reflection there. All right. So value scale, light to dark. So when your teachers are talking about levels of value, white, we're usually talking white is your level 1, and then you're progressively getting darker. Most teachers go anywhere between a 5-step scale to a 9 or 10-step scale as we're teaching drawing. So depending upon kind of what your teacher's talking about, when they say go darker, they're talking about trying to get some of these values down here. So hopefully you're seeing the contrast between light and dark, and then all the levels of gray in between. Good luck.